A yak is not just a free ball, but a mountain dweller. The animals living there are tougher than polar ice. Look at how furious this yak is as it faces a pack of wolves. The predators are taken aback as they didn't expect this level of aggressiveness and strength. The yak fights better than larger bovids and seems to counterattack. Today, we will show you other impressive scenes where mountain animals make it clear they are no joke. A yak peacefully grazing may not appear as a fierce animal, but that's just an illusion. As soon as danger rises, this fierce mountaineer immediately goes on the offensive. In the midst of a fight, it tries to trample its opponent and engages in combat without fear, using its physical abilities at 100%. There's no predator that can defeat an adult yak one-on-one. Yak calves can feel safe near their parents. Notice the fierceness with which a female scares away a snow leopard cub. The predator can't bite the large vessels in the young one's neck, nor does it have time to strangle the calf. The female attacks the leopard with bulldozer-like tenacity. The snow leopard apparently thought that next to the cub, the female wouldn't fight with all her strength to avoid accidentally harming her little one. However, the predator underestimated the martial skills of its victim. It wanted to strangle the calf and retreat when the yak herd had been demoralized by the loss. But the plan failed. Observe how the female yak literally crushes the predator with strong and forceful blows. It is so precise that it never touches her calf. The snow leopard is stunned but has no opportunity to kill the calf. The female lifts the powerful predator with her horns as if it were ragdoll, almost stepping on it. And only at the last moment does the snow leopard retreat, realizing how this fight would end for it. The calf is safe. What's even more impressive is the confrontation between yaks and wolves. The canid family predators have learned to adapt well to mountain living conditions. But yaks are always ready to show that they are the ones in charge here. When fighting against wolves, the yak counterattacks with its horns and can deliver devastating blows with its hind hooves at the same time. A precise hit, and the wolf is left with no healthy rib. The predator goes flying as if it had been hit by a truck. Even if it's lucky enough not to have internal organ damage, it can no longer pursue the prey. It must also constantly dodge the sharp horn tips. If the yak hits its mark, it will pierce its enemy and literally pin it to the ground. The extraordinary strength allows the yak to throw the wolf over its head, not just to put it on its horns. Mountain wolves are not only incredibly strong, but also practical. A couple of yaks fight furiously against the wolf pack. However, one of the herbivores got carried away and didn't realize that the wolves had deliberately brought the battle closer to the cliff. The yak simply fell headfirst from the height of a second floor. The damage is not too severe for such a giant. However, the wolves will have an easier time finishing it if they manage to force the young yak into the rocks, leaving it with no room to maneuver and accelerate. 2 or 3 wolves will take care of it easily. Whom do you support in this showdown? Comment and tell us which mountain animal is your favorite. There are entirely wild yak populations, but there are also domesticated ones. They were domesticated in Asia hundreds or even thousands of years ago. The domesticated yak, although relatively loyal to humans, has retained the untamed temperament of its ancestors and their enormous strength. Watch a duel between a yak and an ordinary bull. Although the yak's height is enormous, its weight may be slightly less than that of its opponent, the heavier bull. It attacks with the clear hope of breaking its opponent's defenses, but it doesn't know what it's getting into. The yak's fury is incredible. It pushes its opponent and uses tactics as well. A yak's horns can measure about 1 meter in length, and the distance between their tips is approximately the same. This gives it an advantage over other horned animals that can't boast the same arsenal. The yak delivers fierce blows with its sharp horns to the neck, torso, and snout of its opponent, chasing and trying to trample it to crush it. Provoking a yak is a terrible idea for any creature. Yaks are exclusively high mountain bovids that have lived at incredible altitudes in the Himalayas for thousands of years. They are perfectly adapted to high-altitude climates, with thick, long, curly fur that protects them from the cold, and large lungs and heart to help them survive in low-oxygen environments. Yaks possess great strength. allowing them to defy attempts by wolves to bring them down, outmuscle other ungulates of comparable weight, stomp on their enemies, and scatter them like the wind disperses fallen leaves. However, things get ugly at lower altitudes. Yaks have almost no sweat glands, making them ill-suited for temperature regulation in lower altitude areas. Interestingly, for some inexplicable reason, wild yaks hate grasslands developed by humans. In Southeast Asia, domesticated buffalo coexist peacefully with their wild counterparts, sometimes even forming mixed herds and families. Wild yaks and domestic yaks rarely interbreed, which is a good thing. Do you know how the conflict between a domesticated and a wild yak will end? The rivals may appear similar, but the mountain air clearly has some kind of doping effect on the animals. The wild yak turns to its distant domestic relative and delivers a series of devastating blows. The domestic yak's defense is crushed like paper under a steamroller's pressure. However, a duel between two domestic yaks is a fight between equals, and they are in no way inferior to their wild counterparts. Look at the frenzied charge as one yak forces its opponent to retreat. The stronger yak notices the bumps and holes behind its opponent, so it deliberately leads it there to imbalance it. Domestic yak fights are rarely deadly for one of the opponents, but in a fit of rage, the animals can inflict serious injuries on each other. One of the most famous and mysterious inhabitants of the mountains is the snow leopard. This predator has incredible agility, even by feline standards. Watch how it literally flies from rock to rock while pursuing its prey. Like other pantherines, the snow leopard can perform relatively short sprints, but in those few minutes, the predator covers vast distances. Every leap by a snow leopard is a jump from a height greater than a human's to a distance several times the predator's body length. The predator moves so quickly that it seems to vanish in one place and reappear closer to its prey. Herbivores panic as they didn't expect such agility. Finally, the snow leopard makes the final leap and crashes into its prey with all its weight. It might seem that an intense duel and a fight on the edge of a cliff would be a bad idea, and indeed, both animals fell off. But don't underestimate the snow leopard. This fall is part of the predator's hunting tactics. It's no mistake. Surprisingly, thanks to its extraordinary agility, the snow leopard can survive a fall from the height of a third or fourth floor right onto sharp rocks. Here's another confirmation of the joke that cats are liquids. It's worth recognizing that herbivores also often survive such dizzying falls. However, during the fight, the snow leopard repeatedly smashes its opponent against the rocks, damaging its limbs and gaining an advantage. When the prey is exhausted, the snow leopard has no choice but to attack its throat and squeeze it with its fangs. And in the pursuit, the animals have fallen far below the herd of herbivores, so there's no time for anyone to come to their aid. This tactic is very risky. Any slight mistake, a misplaced paw, or just bad luck, and the snow leopard will suffer critical injuries. A broken leg in its case is a fatal outcome for the hunt. The snow leopard has to fight its prey, control its own fall, and watch every rock at the same time, and it can't have a shred of fear of heights. Admit it, even watching a fall like this through a screen makes you feel uncomfortable. It's as if you're about to get dizzy. However, the cat is so brave that it keeps its composure and maximum concentration even while fighting a larger herbivore after falling from a cliff. Yes, such desperate courage is well worth a like, right? The snow leopard feeds on the boldest and most agile herbivores, such as goats and sheep, that manage to cling to the narrowest, sharpest ledges and walk on steep cliffs while supporting a large body weight on the tips of their hooves. These herbivores are invulnerable to other predators. If wolves climb to high elevations, the herbivores simply jump onto the rocks, out of the predator's reach. Bears also have no chance of catching these climbing herbivores. Any bear would simply plummet into the abyss and crash if it tried to pursue its prey here. Furthermore, a ram or a goat could push their enemy into the abyss. Neither immense strength, speed, nor teamwork will avail against these mountain inhabitants, thanks to their extraordinary climbing abilities. Rams and goats are virtually invulnerable to most other predators. Only the snow leopard has the agility and fearlessness necessary to hunt these unique animals. Interestingly, these herbivores and snow leopards are more or less equal in their climbing abilities. But their bodies have adapted to this way of life in very different ways. Observe how the goat climbs on rocks. It's amazing how it can grip small ledges with the tips of its hooves. In general, hooves are poorly adapted for climbing. They are not sensitive, not flexible, and have weak grip on surfaces. But here's an exception to the rule. A mountain goat can grip onto steep rock and walk unhindered on it, over ledges and stones so small that its hooves don't even fit there. At the same time, it shows no fear and remains unfazed. For this animal, wandering dangerously close to falling into an abyss is a normal way of life. Not only can it walk, but it can also run in these conditions. The snow leopard has adapted to climbing on rocks differently. While goats have fairly long legs but a mobile body to move sideways at any moment and avoid falling, the snow leopard seems to crawl on the rocks. In relation to its body, it has rather short but very powerful and muscular legs with large soft pads. Its strong, sharp claws allow it to not only securely grip onto ledges during dizzying jumps, but also grasp almost solid rocks while running upright on them to the next place where it can stand. The snow leopard keeps its center of gravity as low as possible to remain stable, and although its legs are short, they possess enormous strength. Not only can the snow leopard leap over a bus, but it can easily climb a steep rocky slope while holding a prey item twice its own weight in its jaws. However, the most important aspect is the snow leopard's fluffy, extremely long tail. While a leopard liker reaches half the length of its body, the snow leopard's tail can reach its own head. Besides being the perfect balancer in motion, the tail also serves as a blanket during windy, freezing nights. In blizzards, the snow leopard covers its head and muzzle with the tail's soft tip to protect itself from the cold. It looks very cuddly. You'd want to wrap it in a blanket and give it something warm to drink. By the way, snow leopards are one of the most playful, tame, and loyal large predators to humans. It's a pity that their habitat has shrunk due to human activities. We can only hope that their population will recover thanks to the efforts of animal protection organizations. Llamas, guanacos, and alpacas are inhabitants of the mountains of South America. These very distant relatives of camels do not have a hump or huge size. However, the animals appear somewhat otherworldly with their large, intelligent eyes, fleshy lips, and long necks. They seem harmless and quiet, especially since local populations domesticated some species of these herbivores centuries or even millennia ago and used them as substitutes for horses. But they should not be underestimated. These herbivores are excellent fighters. When this puma attacked a guanaco, it immediately realized how wrong it was. For this cat, getting on the back of its prey is only half the battle. The real rodeo begins when it tries to bring down its prey, reach its throat, and it's ready for its meal. Well, the start of the fight against the guanaco is just the beginning of the adventure for the puma. The herbivore seemed to explode with energy and aggression, and the real rodeo began. The puma seemed stunned by this unexpected turn of events. The guanaco put on a real mini earthquake, jumping from side to side, with maximum amplitude jumps, sudden launches, and it seems to deliberately lose balance to regain it at the last moment. The puma was already a bit to the side. The herbivore repeatedly struck the puma with its own body, beating the predator in a way that was quite pitiful. And all this without much help from its hooves. The puma would realize too late that if it loses its cool, such an aggressive prey will not only escape but also trample and crush its skull with its hooves. Now, the puma is the one in danger. It must be acknowledged that it is also a seasoned mountain dweller. That's why, despite the risks, after every devastating fall, the puma leaps again and again onto the back of its prey. But the guanaco is too strong. It gets rid of the tired predator and escapes the chase. However, this isn't always the case. If the puma can reach the herbivore's windpipe, it will kill a victim even 3 times its size. The key is to imbalance it. The birds that live in the mountains are among the strongest and most resilient in the world. They are also some of the largest. Observe as a mountain eagle attacks a goat several times larger than itself. This is the golden eagle, considered one of the strongest birds in the world. They live so high up in the Rocky Mountains that there are hardly any trees, allowing the golden eagles to use their own hunting tactic. Since their prey has no protection from above, the birds attack by flying low and making their prey fall. However, they don't kill the prey during the ground fight. Instead, they carry it into the sky and then drop it from a height. But if the plunge down the abyss doesn't succeed, the eagle uses a different hunting tactic. It makes its prey fall, and both predator and prey tumble downhill together. During this journey, the prey sustains significant damage from hitting the rocks. Meanwhile, the eagle continuously works with its talons, striking the prey's back and head, targeting the neck and legs. The strike of a golden eagle is a combination of the power of a charging attack and the penetrating stabs of its talons. It's challenging to resist, and with the acceleration, the force of this strike increases tremendously, resembling a collision with a small vehicle. The talons not only grip tighter than a bulldog's jaws, but also inflict damage to internal organs. If lucky, a golden eagle can break the victim's neck or spine during the initial attack. And even if the victim avoids such injuries, they will lose strength due to ongoing wounds. The eagle only resorts to using its beak in the final phase of the hunt, when it's left with a defeated and nearly immobilized prey. However, don't assume this tactic is 100% effective. As you've seen, the mountains are home to some incredibly resilient animals, and herbivores in these regions are not as easily frightened as those in lowlands. When a golden eagle decided to take down and drag a wild goat over sharp rocks, it didn't account for the goat's agility. The goat fell to the ground but managed to use the momentum to get back on its feet. The golden eagle didn't give up. This was a battle between worthy opponents. The enormous bird used its wings as a balancer to stay on top, repeatedly throwing its opponent to the ground, and they tumbled and rolled. The goat received blow after blow, but it not only managed to save its life and bones, but also crushed the eagle beneath itself several times. Despite its smaller size, a golden eagle is much lighter than a goat. At such speed, the goat almost flattened the eagle multiple times. The bird was bewildered. Just a moment ago, it was on top, its talons gripping the opponent's back, and suddenly it fell beneath the goat, crushed by its body, then flipped over and had its head slammed against a rock. This couldn't last long, but the goat's cleverness saved it. It correctly timed the moment and allowed the golden eagle to rise above it. So in the next somersault, it struck the bird's head against the rock and then hit it with its own body. Surprisingly, the golden eagle seemed to come out of it unscathed. The prey fled. It made no sense to tangle with such an agile and brave goat. However, the mountain bird managed to keep its wings intact. So, we can say that the duel ended in a draw. Which of the mountain inhabitants concerned you the most this time? Please respond in the comments. Does the power and wingspan of a golden eagle impress you? Then this mountain bird will astonish you even more. It's the Indian condor, the world's largest flying bird. Currently, the wingspan of this winged monster exceeds 3 meters, an absolute record. There are streets in the world narrower than the wingspan of a condor. The shadow of its wings can cover a car, and when the condor is on the ground, its head is at the same height as that of a human. The Indian condor is also the heaviest bird capable of remaining in the air for extended periods. Although some swans and albatrosses may be heavier, they don't fly well. The Indian condor, on the other hand, spends most of its life in the air to conserve energy. It glides more often than actively flapping its wings for propulsion. The shape of its wings is ideal for gliding broad, powerful, and straight, with an expansive silhouette and large feathers that perfectly catch air currents. The condor can spend hours without a single wing beat, thanks to its excellent ability to sense the wind. Furthermore, its significant weight for a bird, and powerful but less aerodynamic wings deprive it of speed. But speed isn't necessary. The condor typically feeds on carrion it finds during its extensive travels through the Andes. A golden eagle somehow pales in comparison to a condor. Wouldn't you agree? But don't think of the condor solely as a scavenger. This bird is an excellent fighter, although it's too heavy to actively hunt. It often engages in fights with terrestrial predators just to snatch their prey. You're only looking at a condor chick. It's known that a condor has attacked a puma and stolen the meal it had just caught. Attacking a puma to claim its prey is quite an achievement. Not even bears dare to do it. But the condor doesn't care. When its wings cover the entire valley, the animals have no choice but to scatter in different directions. When photos of this hitherto relatively unknown cat began to appear more frequently on the internet, it caused quite a stir. It's adorable, not the size of a domestic cat, but very fluffy, with long fur, enormous ears, expressive and curious eyes, muscular legs with large pads that support its somewhat rounded body. Theories emerged that a new breed of domestic cat had emerged. However, it became evident that it's not a domestic animal, but a Pallas's cat, a wild hunter. Don't underestimate this creature. It's one of the most bloodthirsty, cruel, and robust felids. Although it usually hunts small prey like rodents, its combat experience would be the envy of even an MMA veteran. This is due to its specific behavior. The Pallas's cat, also known as the Manul, almost never retreats in the face of danger and prefers an honest fight to fleeing. While the Manul doesn't like to be the first to engage a larger opponent, it doesn't run away. Instead, it relies on its camouflage. In times of danger, its long fur makes it almost invisible among cliffs, rocks, ledges, and gray sands. So if an enemy is nearby, the Manul stops moving. But if the enemy is alert and spots the Manul, it doesn't flee. It fights. Reports claiming that the Manul is a domestic cat breed are incorrect. Its aggressive, unsociable, and introverted nature makes it wholly unsuitable as a pet. The Manul is not domesticable. By the way, if you want to learn more about other species of small wild felids, write it in the comments. Trust us, they can be just as surprising as the big cats. The Manul excels in special combat tactics. While many other predators do their best to protect their bellies, the Pallas's cat lies on its back. However, it's not a clever maneuver. It's simpler than that. In this position, the Manul can fight with all four paws at once. The enemy will regret messing with this wild cat. The Manul uses its claws to tear into the enemy. No tricks, no finesse, no elegant maneuvers. Just pure suffering awaiting the enemy. The Manul's claws cannot cause mortal damage to larger foes, but damage to soft tissues, muscle openings, and the skin will sap the enthusiasm of any adversary. When the Manul engages, it doesn't seem to know when to stop. If an enemy is willing to withdraw, it only seems to fuel the cat's enthusiasm. Just a couple of minutes ago, it was defending. The Manul will crush its enemy and make them flee in terror. And it will also put its fangs to work. The levels of fury are only matched by those of the honey badger or the wolverine. But who knows? Maybe these rogues are lucky that their habitat is different from the Manul's. Whom would you bet on in this theoretical showdown? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're curious to hear your opinion. Life in the mountains is tough, so the local herbivores are hardier than most of their lowland relatives. Witness this aggressive duel between two rams. They don't care if they fight in a safe location or right on the edge of a cliff. Both animals fight hard but without excessive cruelty. They don't use hooves or sneaky blows, only direct ramming tactics. The goal is to determine who is the toughest in the herd, who will be the leader and have the attention of the females. The rams fight desperately for this motivation. The ram's horns have a wide bony base on the front of their skull. This is the part they use to deliver their blows. The animals can accelerate rapidly from a standstill. One moment, the animal is standing, and the next, it charges the enemy at full speed. The collision between the two opponents is epic, stunning both animals for a moment. However, there are no serious injuries thanks to the special structure of their skulls and necks. The sound of the impact echoes throughout the valley. But fighting isn't the only impressive way these mountain animals defend themselves. These creatures have learned to use mountaineering as a weapon. Do you think it's a joke? Not at all. When this massive and intimidating brown bear spotted a family of wild goats, it was already salivating. The goats are almost defenseless against this half-done predator, and the treacherous cliff makes their retreat extremely difficult. There's nowhere to run, and fighting seems futile. But the bear didn't know who it was dealing with. Instead of fleeing in terror, the 3 members of the wild goat family simply headed to the steepest part of the cliff, where the rock appears completely smooth from a distance. The bear was perplexed. It had underestimated the skills of its opponents. The goats squeezed against the rock on a stretch so narrow that the bear could never have stood on its own. The predator spent a long time waiting, thinking that its prey would have a hard time maintaining balance, that the goats would fall or attempt to leave. But none of that happened. They were perfectly comfortable there, looking at the bear and seemingly taunting it. They were entirely safe and could stay longer than the predator's patience. And so it happened. The bear was forced to retreat. But don't underestimate bears. Some brown bears choose to live in rocky mountains. These giant predators may not look like excellent climbers, right? Well, leave the stereotypes behind. The brown giants accustomed to climbing have perfectly developed climbing skills. Look at how this adult bear scales a cliff. The angle is almost vertical, and while there aren't too many obstacles, not all professional climbers would dare to climb to the height of a 7th floor without safety ropes. But you have to admit that it's impressive, right? The bear appears to have received climbing lessons from professionals. Notice how the wild animal follows the same rules, maintaining 3 points of contact before moving. It relies on its hind legs for support and propulsion, instead of attempting to climb with its front paws. It also flattens itself against the rock, pressing its belly against it. In summary, this beast has years of climbing experience. Bears like to diversify their diet with plant foods like berries, nuts, roots, and the green parts of plants. They also love honey. But in the mountains, due to the colder climate and the lack of fertile soil, they are more likely to remember that their fangs and claws are for hunting, not just for destroying beehives. The camera captured a spectacular hunt of deer by a bear. The predator attacked an entire herd of these horned animals on its own. It descended from a mountain, accelerated from a distance, and launched its attack. The bear managed to get close to the deer without being detected, then switched to a full gallop, deliberately revealing its presence. The attack by such a giant caused panic among the deer, and the bear was able to choose the most suitable prey, a deer separated from the others. Due to panic, the rest of the herd wouldn't defend it. This chase was captured on camera at Yellowstone National Wildlife Refuge, which spans the Rocky Mountains with its valleys, plateaus, lowlands, and many ridges. On the other side of the hemisphere, one of the most epic, tragic, and intense scenes featuring bears took place in the mountains of Spain. As you can see, an aggressive male detected a female with cubs. These cubs are the offspring of another bear. The male decided to massacre them to get rid of future competition and probably to claim the female during the upcoming mating season. Although the bear family tried to hide among sharp rocks with many depressions and curves, the powerful male reached them. Events then unfolded like a suspense movie. The brave mother covered her cubs with her own body. It was impossible to go around her. On one side was a precipice. On the other was a steep cliff. The narrow path was blocked by a furious female ready to fight to the end to save her babies. Meanwhile, the cubs retreated in panic, taking steps backward on ledges so narrow, hidden among the rocks, that not even one adult could fit with 2 legs on them. But all these tricks were in vain. The curious and predatory male attacked the female, resulting in an intense duel over the abyss that separated them. The bear's powerful paws leaned against a rock, without giving the male any chance of victory. The massive bear weighs over half a ton, while the female is about 1.5 times lighter. So, the powerful and crushing slashes leave no room for victory. Then, the female played her last card to save her cubs. She grabs the powerful male with her last strength, exerting all she can, and throws him into the abyss with herself. The male bear couldn't resist such a powerful throw. Together, They fell from the height of a fifth floor. The larger male was dragged down by sharp rocks and rocks. These impacts against the rocks, even for the heaviest carnivores, are a tough challenge. Both animals are stunned. Now, we can only hope that the bears survive, that the female regains consciousness before the male wakes up, and that she can save her cubs. The puma has many names. It's also called the American lion or mountain lion, although its distribution area is very diverse, and pumas can be found in many parts of South, Central, and North America. Part of its population resides in the mountains, where these felines demonstrate their power like nowhere else. For example, there's a rare video of a bear and a puma on a narrow mountain trail. The bear has almost 5 times the weight and pure physical strength advantage. This predator is used to making his only concern to catch his prey, and from there's no one to resist him. The bear is used to taking what he wants, but here he clearly underestimated his opponent. The puma's fury is more potent than any steroid. The wildcat shows his opponent right away that he shouldn't have messed with him. The bear probably expects the puma to use the weapon he threatens him with, his fangs. He's wrong. First, the puma delivers a series of powerful blows with its paws, just like other felines in battles with their carnivore rivals. The puma prefers to start with boxing and then move to the ground. Not even a half-ton bear can resist such an attack. The puma is a significant threat to the livestock grazing in the Indian valleys. For this reason, for local ranchers, the puma, with all its strength and nobility, is still primarily a danger and an enemy to protect flocks of sheep and other livestock. In the Andes, several breeds of herding dogs with impressive physical and fighting characteristics have been bred. Breeders tried to create a monster that could fight the puma, even on equal terms. Well, these dogs are genuinely aggressive. They attacked the enemy from all sides, grabbed him with their powerful jaws, and tried to tear him apart. 3 dogs against 1 puma. It seems that another couple of minutes, and it will be the wild predator's last day. Except the dogs underestimated the puma. The lone cat not only gave the dogs an impressive and powerful rebuff with its claws and fangs, but also managed to literally throw one of them during the battle. The beasts became entangled in a tangle of fury and strength, and then fell together down the hill. But the puma was the only animal left in an advantageous position. Thanks to its feline agility, it could twist during the fall and avoid serious injuries. We can't say the same for the dogs. They counted every stone with their heads and ribs. This tactical cunning saved the puma. The dogs are in shock. They keep fighting, but no longer intend to surround the enemy. The puma has managed to escape from an almost desperate situation and get away from the dogs. All that's left for the dogs is to lick their wounds, which are much more severe than those of their enemy, and that with such a numerical advantage, it was a battle they had lost. These enormous dogs shouldn't mess with such a dangerous mountain predator. This epic battle between muskoxen and a pack of wolves is incredibly cinematic. The predators surround the herbivores during a snowstorm. The cold wind is so intense that the animals barely stay in one place. The snow blocks visibility. Still, the muskoxen stand firm like a solid stone wall. Every wolf attack is almost fatal for them. The muskoxen remain in a tight formation and cover each other. There's no way to break their defense or provoke the departure of a muskox. If a wolf approaches us too close, it will be gored or trampled before the others can come to its aid. If a wolf from the opposite side strays too far, the sight of its smiling fangs won't make any impression on the muskox. In the end, the wolves have to retreat and look for easier prey. They underestimated the composure of these muskoxen. Why can wolves so panic in a massive herd of bison and make them run, even though each of them weighs a ton? They are helpless against the muskoxen. They are almost 3 times smaller than the bison. Where do they get their courage? As it turns out, this spectacular confrontation took place in the lowlands near the Arctic Ocean's shores. Wolves face a proud animal. Most current mountain inhabitants are likely descendants of lowland dwellers who have ascended with each generation, occupying vacant ecological niches. This was probably the case with the snow leopard, whose closest relative is the tiger. One has just moved to the lowlands, while the other has climbed the mountains. In the muskox case, the situation is the opposite. This animal is currently found in Arctic latitudes in Siberia, North America, and Greenland. However, according to scientists, muskoxen are ancient mountain dwellers. The distant Himalayas were their home. Muskoxen thrived there, but didn't descend, as their bodies were only adapted to colder climates. It's easy to see why muskoxen succeeded in life. Look at how a single muskox puts up an impressive fight against several wolves at once. It takes an entire pack to fight these muskoxen, and these are polar wolves, some of the strongest and largest on the planet. But the muskox fights desperately against them and maintains its defense for a long time. Muskoxen, by the way, are close relatives of mountain sheep, not bulls. And then came the last ice age, after which muskoxen began to spread across Eurasia. They even reached North America through the Bering Strait. When the climate warmed up again, muskoxen moved closer to the North Pole, where low temperatures were still pleasant for them. However, there were no muskoxen left in the Himalayas. It turns out that the muskox is a mountain animal that now lives in the lowlands, but has retained its main characteristics, such as warm fur and other traits. Which mountain inhabitant has surprised you the most?